Hi everyone, I'm PPE and this is the Peso Pro episodes where we talk about money management tips and peso tricks. Today we're gonna talk about G-Invest. For those of you who have been with GCash and their journey over the past 2-3 years or so, G-Invest isn't a new feature. Actually, it's one of the older features in GCash. However, this feature has not seen a big improvement since it started. Before, if you look at the G-Invest portion of the app, you will only see one fund, which is a money market fund. And the common thing for maybe new investors on what made them a bit confused is this fund wasn't really returning very good returns. It's somewhere around a low single digit, maybe 1 to 3%. And a lot of people were confused on, bakit ko pa nilagay yung pera ko dito kung hindi naman pala siya mag-grow? And in this video, before I jump into the new features of G-Invest, I want to talk about a few basics of unit investment trust funds or mutual funds because they all work about the same way so that all of us are grounded on how these work and what we can expect from different kinds of funds. If you look at the GCash app now in G-Invest, you will see a lot more options that are very exciting, and we're also gonna talk about all of those. First, let's talk about a very quick basic recap of what UITFs are. They're technically a pool of funds from different investors on different kinds of investments. Okay, medyo nahilo kayo dun. Think about UITFs as a basket of different kinds of investments. It can be bonds, stocks, or time deposits, treasury bonds. Different kinds of baskets are available from different companies. These different kinds of baskets all represent different kinds of risks, right? So if you think about it, bank time deposits are probably lower risk because of the nature of their fixed return, and banks are covered by the BSP and PDIC insurance, those kinds of things. But then you also have UITFs that have money in stocks or equities that are considered higher risk because the volatility and the future of these companies are never guaranteed. So think about when you buy into a UITF, you're actually buying a pool of different kinds of investments, and the performance of those different kinds of investments vary based on the strategy of that specific fund. This is the reason why, for example, in the old G-Invest feature, what you have is the money market fund. That money market fund had placements on time deposits in different banks in the Philippines. So what you would expect actually is an average return of the different kinds of different time deposits from various banks, which also equates to then having quite a low amount of return because if you go to your bank, depending kung anong bank meron ka, for example, you go to BPI or BDO or Metrobank, those banks would have different time deposit rates. So technically, nung bumili ka into the fund, you're putting in money to different kinds of time deposits without having you to go and sign up for those time deposits at every bank. What this does though is it gives you some level of variety and also some diversification because kahit na isang fund lang yung binili mo, lahat na nung banks na nagpa-participate in that fund, actually nabilhan mo na rin ng time deposit. What I also like about G-Invest is the barrier for entry is very low. You can start investing with only 50 pesos, so you can even just do that, top up from your GCash wallet, and try investing and try to learn more about what investing can bring you. Okay, so now we're done with the basic part. We're gonna talk about the new funds that are coming your way. Ngayon, medyo interesting na siya kasi may option ka na in the G-Invest app. All of the funds are still being managed by Atram, but now you have 5 funds to choose from, and all of these 5 funds can offer different varying types of returns because of the different risk profiles and assets that they invest in. What does this mean? Meaning, pag pumili kayo ng fund, na yun, hindi na kayo lock na time deposits lang yung pinag-i-investan nyo. However, you can also try to read through all of these funds because paiba-iba naman tayo ng investment goals and objectives. So minsan, napapatanong kayo na kung, for example, if the peso money market fund offers very low return, bakit pa siya nandyan? Or bakit ko yan pipiliin? And That may be because your current investing scenario or current investing objectives are very different from other people. Some people actually like this fund because it offers very reliable, stable, and safe returns. So think about a person maybe late in his or her life, mga retirees for example. While the returns are not that big, but if they have amassed good enough nest egg or retirement amount, they may be able to just accept about a lower amount of return because they're also willing to only put in so much risk kasi wala na silang income, so they cannot go and ride the volatility of the stock market kasi pag nag-crash, then their livelihood or their day-to-day expenses may be at stake. This is a good example on why there are different kinds of funds, and don't always just go for the fund na historically napakataas ng performance, because I know a lot of you and even friends almost always just look at historical performance when you select the fund. That shouldn't be the case. Historical performance or yung past 12 months, past 2 years are never guarantees or are never predictors of what will happen to the fund in the future. And I'll tell you about a very good example about that in a bit. There are 2 types of sub-classifications in the 5 funds in G-Invest. There are domestic, so mga Philippine-based investments that allow you to invest a minimum of 50 pesos so that you can start investing right away. We're gonna cover those in a bit. There's a second part which are foreign types of investments. So ito yung 2 other funds in the list of G-Invest where you can invest in global kinds of investments like stocks across different companies and countries even. That one requires a minimum of 1,000 pesos so that you can buy into the fund. Meaning, pag nag-order ka lower than that, the transaction may fail and it may be refunded into your GCash wallet. The good thing about G-Invest is nakatay siya kay GCash. So, kung anong perang meron ka sa GCash wallet mo, yun actually yung money na pwede mo ring i-invest kay G-Invest. So, meaning kung paano ka nagta-top up or nagka-cash into your GCash wallet, you just need to do exactly the same thing and then you can now invest into certain funds. You don't have to open another brokerage account or another online account. But if you want to open one that's very dedicated to mutual funds, for example, you can check out this video that I did on Seedbox. It's also being run by Atram, but you have a lot more choices on what types of funds are there. So, mas maraming options. You can maybe select a few that meet the objective that you have. There are 3 domestic funds in G-Invest. Una, yung luma na available na peso money market fund. So, we're not gonna talk about that. The next one is an Atram Total Return Peso Bond Fund. What this means is this fund actually invests into retail treasury bonds or treasury notes. What does that mean? Ito po yung mga government-issued bonds or notes. So, technically, naungutang yung government from retail investors. What this also means is because it's government issued, it's very low risk or actually virtually no risk because the government can basically print money to pay us all back. So that's why also some of these returns can be a bit low. But again, if you want stable, safe, reliable investments, then this can be an option for you. There's a third option in the domestic funds called the Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund. What this does is it's an index fund of 30 of the top Philippine companies that represents the stock index. So what this means is naghahanap sila ng 30 companies that somehow mirrors the performance of the Philippine Stock Exchange Index para mag-grow mo yung pera mo in line with these 30 companies. Atram follows an enhanced index approach which you can read through in their website. But essentially, this fund covers the big companies like Ayala Corporation, SM Investments, URC, and Globe, to name a few. These are the 3 domestic funds, so you can invest and start investing with only 50 pesos. So you can actually go ahead and try all of them if you want to learn how they react, how to process, and actually how the funds work. On the international funds, this is probably one of the newer features that you can get access to global funds. So it's quite interesting because with your GCash app, pwede ka na mag-invest in global companies like Alibaba, Apple, and the like. The first one is the Atram Global Technology Feeder Fund. As the name suggests, the basket, so think about that basket analogy again, that basket of funds is now all technology stocks and corporations across the world. Meaning, naghahanap sila ng mga what they feel are the best performing technology companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Alphabet. Alphabet being the parent company of Google. And nag-invest sila doon on your behalf. If you buy into the fund, you're technically buying a basket of these technology stocks. In the past, these technology stocks have performed very, very well, especially in 2020, and probably somehow correlated to COVID-19 when everyone was shifting to digital and online and e-commerce. However, again, past performance isn't always a guarantee of future results. So if you also follow the stock market, these global technology stocks have also crashed quite a bit in the last few weeks, which just reinforces the fact that no one really knows what will happen next, and everyone who has a prediction is as good as anyone else guess. The second fund is the Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund. So as also the name suggests, yung basket naman ng stocks na to are all consumer related, which means that this fund actually invests in companies like Amazon, C Group, which is the company owning Shopee, and Alibaba, like the Chinese giant e-commerce platform. So again, consumer related. So kung ano yung mga consumer trends, you follow these companies because they are the ones that are most likely going to benefit from any consumer trends across the world. So think about UITFs or these funds as an option for you to actually invest in domestic corporations or global corporations or domestic bonds and notes. Ang kagandahan nito because now that you have options within the GCash app, you can actually read through them and try to understand saan ba nila nilalagay yung pera ko. This is also a good way because once you buy into the fund, it's instant diversification. Because essentially, what you're buying, even if isa lang yung binibili mo, you're technically buying the entire underlying basket of investments in that fund, whether it's bonds, time deposits, or stocks. Lastly, when you think about these investments, always think about the fluctuations in price as paper gains or losses. What does that mean? Up until hindi mo i-redeem or i-sell yung portion or yung units mo into the fund, those gains or losses are subject to the fluctuation of the total fund. So if for example, today, nag-gain siya ng 10% but you kept the money in your fund, and tomorrow, nag-crash siya ng 20%, then the value of your fund actually fluctuates. What experts suggest is that you don't look at this on a daily basis unless if you're really into doing some sort of swing trade even on these funds, because in a lot of cases, the minor fluctuations on a day-to-day price will be outweighed by the long-term prospect na yung funds mo will really grow in value over time, and that has been proven by the stock market over the past few decades. Obviously, no one can predict if how big the gains will be or how many months or days magkakalos yung market. So it's best to come up with an investing strategy that works for you and be diligent about your investing behavior so that you can actually cost average your way into these funds. Meaning, you buy at a certain regular interval for your budget and buy into the fund so that you buy the highs and the lows so that you get an average and benefit of the growth of the economy over the long period of time. Again, only invest the amount of money that you can afford to lose because none of this is guaranteed. So you can lose money in these investments. So as exciting as they may be, please make sure to read the prospectus under the bottom part. If you scroll through the app, there is a fund performance sheet And remember to just think about it in the lens of understanding what the fund manager wants to do with this fund and see if that works for you. Don't be blinded by the past performance numbers in making a decision because again, hindi lahat na nangyari in the past 12 months, 2 years will exactly be the same things that will happen in the next year or so. Overall, this is a very exciting time for GCash users because now investing has never been simpler and easier. It's very easy to do. You can click on GInvest and immediately you will see these funds. It's like buying something online. So I will not even do a how-to video on this because I'm pretty sure by now you're very used to adding things to cart. So why not make these UITFs or these GInvest funds the next things that you add to cart? If you want to learn more about investments, different kinds of vehicles, these two videos are really good resources. I did a live stream on investment options that you can watch right now. So what are you waiting for? Click on this video right now so that when you try to invest in these funds, you have a better understanding of what risk is, what are the other types of investments. And I've said enough. I hope you've already clicked. If you haven't, please click these videos, click on subscribe and the notification bell below, and I'll see you on the next one.